Check. How are your levels?
Check 1, 2. Good.
They look good on the monitor.
They sound good in my ears.
Your voice sounds good in my ears.
Well, that's nice.
Okay. Well, welcome back.
We back again.
It's been a few minutes, but yeah, we're back.
I think it's episode
6 or 7.
I would say 7.
So, and today we're talking about big picture, right?
Mm-hmm. Big picture. Both, how do you plan your life thinking from the big picture of what you want, who you want to be, and working backwards, and how that helps kind of set up your everyday and how you want to live every day. And
so when you say big picture, and it can be anything we want, I guess, but are you thinking like one goal as your big picture goal? Or are you just thinking like mapping out what you want your life to look like in 10 years?
more of the latter, mapping out what you want your life to look like in 10 years. Because once I started to set my goals as big as I wanted them to be, it allowed me to goal set daily, weekly, monthly with much more intention, and allows those things to have purpose.
But don't you feel like every year you look back on the previous version of yourself and go, what a dummy?
Yeah. Yes. But it still keeps me moving.
Yeah.
I think if you,
I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything because of that, but like, I don't know that I want this version of myself planning my year 50, because that guy's gonna be way smarter than this one.
Speaking of year 50, you just had a big birthday.
Mm-hmm. Not 50 though.
Not 50, but Mr. 4-0 over here. It was a big one.
It was a big one. And you threw a very nice party. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks to everyone that was there.
Yeah.
Thanks to 2 bars.
Yes.
2 bars.
2 bars of whiskey is getting us through the podcast today.
Yeah. They gave us so much booze that we'll be drinking it on the podcast for a while.
Yeah. And do a blog on them, do some cool partnership stuff with them. They're local Seattle whiskey company. So I'm excited to dive in with them and get to know them more. But yeah.
See, so back to big picture.
Yes.
When I think big picture, I think about regret more than like what my goal is. Like what I don't want to do is look back in 10 years and be like regret that I haven't chased a dream. So I set some goals.
Yep. No, I agree with that. I think if you don't think of big picture, time goes by so quickly and you think, oh, it's another year and I didn't start this clothing company, or I didn't open this shop, or start an Instagram about my cat, whatever it may be. But if you don't think big picture, it's hard to do the little picture things you need to work towards that. Yeah,
like the grind every day.
Yes.
So I'm going to take one step back and rewind just a little bit, because I think the reason these topics are being talked about, not necessarily from us as a position of authority, that's not my intent anyway, but it's more about the timing of this era and the opportunity that we all have. A lot of our kids, like all they do is watch YouTube videos.
Yep.
Like they don't care about cable. And like Carter doesn't understand when the TV gets put on where there's those commercials and you push a button up and down and it just switches to a number higher or lower and there's a different thing on. To him, that's like archaic, right? He's like, why don't you just want to go to what I want to watch? What is this?
Yeah.
So this idea, like, it's changing so fast, and there's so many opportunities across platforms that some that aren't even invented yet, but a lot that are emerging, where people have an opportunity to do whatever they enjoy the most, more, I think, right now than they ever have been. There's
the ability to do what they love, enjoy the most, and make a career out of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Or let it be a side project. Like anyone, rather than watching another hour of TV, could do a quick podcast.
Right.
And if it's garbage, you know what's better than no podcast? A garbage podcast, right? There's no point in not putting yourself out there. And I have to remind myself that all the time. I want everything perfect.
Right.
I want everything staged, and constantly buying and upgrading things so that it'll be a little bit better, when in reality, someone out there is on a treadmill right now listening on some $9 headphones, and I'm worried about, the white balance for the cameras.
Done is better than perfect.
Right.
Yes.
So, and I think like now is the best opportunity for somebody who wants to take a shot, because I think the lane is still wide open for the most part.
The lane and the amount of platforms that there are, like whatever if you're not comfortable on camera, but you're comfortable speaking in, a studio like this one, then that's where your niche can be. If you are comfortable on camera or you want to make funny videos, I can go to TikTok. I know you talked about TikTok for a while.
TikTok's going to rule the world, guys. I'm telling you. I tried to buy into TikTok like a year ago, maybe even a little longer. And I was telling Susan, like, I think this has the ability to transition into one of the biggest platforms. And it looks like it's going to.
People are talking about it. Like this really popular author right now, Rachel Hollis, she just posted the other day about TikTok and how much of it's a younger audience, but she felt a little bit silly being as old. She's not old. She's just in her 40s.
She's old.
She has the ability to reach a broad but younger audience, and just the comparisons that she made between what 12 to 18-year-olds are struggling with versus what 20 to 50, 60-year-olds are struggling with. And just how powerful that new platform has been for her. And she was hesitant to get on it, but how there's still a market for it. And it doesn't matter because it's still a tool to communicate and connect, which has been the coolest part of all of these platforms. And I hadn't even realized that power until recently, until I really started to go in.
Yeah. And you also have to think about, like, your parents aren't on that platform yet, which means it's probably got life.
Yeah.
Didn't it feel like the day that your parents, and I apologize to my mom if she's listening, and your mom and anyone else who's got
Facebook.
kids, who's on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, and now you start seeing them peppering into Instagram and like the not knowing how to use the platform. Like, I remember that feeling. And there's somebody who is, 19. It's like, oh, Jake, good for you. You figured out stories last year.
Yeah.
You're so cool. But there is, obviously there's layers to it, but I think like buying into the platforms and using them for what, for whatever it is you want to do, but keep in mind that it can and ultimately will be more like a business. And I think the older folks think of it as just like this little chat tool, right? It's something that kind of you do and it goes away, where younger people are treating this, especially artists and people in the like creative space, like this is a lifetime portfolio.
Right.
It's a representation of all that they do, which is why like conservative racist white guys are so comfortable spouting off on it, because they feel like it's just something out in the middle of nowhere that doesn't immediately pin back to them for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And so I think taking advantage of the different platforms, finding something that's new and running with a new idea. Like, I just think if you have an idea or a plan and you're not in motion and kicking ass with it over the next 2 years, like either it wasn't a good idea or that's completely on you, because the opportunity right now is through the roof.
And so how would someone kind of, how it's, especially women, side note, what has been frustrating for me when encouraging other women to get involved, and I myself obviously have insecurities, but all the books that I've been reading, business books, social media books, anything in that realm, at least 70 to 80% of the book is focused on getting over your insecurities, not caring what people think about you, and being brave to like put your content or yourself out there.
But those things are easy for you, right? Like,
no, but I do them anyway.
Yeah,
They're easier.
see,
I don't really embarrass easily.
See what you,
no,
what you just said, like, no, it's hard for me too, but I go through it.
Yeah.
You're showing a willingness to push through it regardless. And I think I agree with you 100%. I remember you talking about this the other day, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to spend the first 3 chapters of the book figuring out how to not be embarrassed about
wanting
X, Y,
to
or
do
Z.
something.
Yeah.
Or build a business or be creative online, like anything. And then I read books written by men and it's like chapter 1, building your brand. It's never like, if you ever feel like you aren't worthy of having a business.
Yeah.
Like,
do you have self-doubt that's preventing you from chasing your dream? It starts 3 or 4 chapters before the book that are kind of done by and for men, it seems.
Yes. And I get so frustrated because there's women that I know in my life that are phenomenal and so talented, but they're allowing their fear of what other people think hold them back. And I think if you had more of a big picture idea, it makes it less scary. Like each little step, like if my biggest goal, so it was deflating. If my biggest goal was to play a certain venue in Seattle and then I do it and then I look around and go, okay, now what? If my biggest goal is to win a Grammy, that's just a teeny little step. And so if your biggest goal is to open up, a clothing store, putting an outfit that you curated on Instagram shouldn't be as scary if you're thinking towards that goal.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I mean, in my opinion, I think it should be scary at all. Yeah. But I do think that those books oftentimes are successful because their audience is there's got to be some predisposition to
absolutely.
them knowing that the people buying this book are trying to find their path, and that's a place to start. But I do think the observation of like who the audience is and why it starts at a different place in the life cycle of a brand is that would be frustrating. I also think is one of your biggest advantages, though.
What, not
for you?
Yeah,
being able to just go for it in all different areas. And I think for you, if somebody said, "Hey, we want you to act in a movie," you wouldn't go around talking to all your friends like, "Could I do it? I mean, I've never really done acting before."
I was the Hobbit in fourth grade.
Of course. So clearly you would destroy it. But even like a late night show, I could have a ton of success and do something really, really incredible, and go on Jimmy Fallon, and I would pee 35 times before going on, and I would be nervous in a way that you wouldn't. And if they surprised a microphone on you and asked you to do karaoke of 20 different songs, you would love it.
Oh, it'd be so fun.
I would poop myself. Like I wouldn't mind going on the show and being, it's all the variables and the unknowns. Like that stuff doesn't bother you.
I love it.
So I think for you, it's a definite advantage.
My personality makes it a little bit easier. But let me ask you then, how has thinking big picture, because I know it's changed, but you've always had big picture goals for your career. How has that changed in the last 5 years? And what do you do to keep your mind? I know you're very strategic in your planning anyway, but what do you do to kind of keep your focus on big picture? And how does that help you in your everyday?
I think that I'm always probably thinking a little bigger and a little further ahead than I need to at times. Like I think there's sometimes I will be a little too strategic and too thought out in the plan. But I mean, I just do something every day to put myself closer to it.
Yeah.
If it's some piece of success or I just need to move the needle a little bit every day.
Right.
And I feel like for a lot of people, it would be building a brand and establishing something over 3 to 5 years. Like I wanted to build a dozen brands, and I would like over the next 5 years for 2 of those to become household names and lead the charge for the rest of the brands that I've created. So
speaking of,
I wanted to have a business that was really 30 businesses.
Okay. And not to do a shameless plug here, but you did just launch one of my favorite brands.
Yeah, the Suncliff. So we acquired the Suncliff brand and all of its intellectual property, and we converted it over to a CBD brand and this is part of the plan. I had a different brand I originally wanted to do it with, and quite frankly, I just think Suncliff branding is better. It was branded by one of the best branding firms here in Seattle. It's beautiful. It goes to a very, very wide demographic, and like I'll jump on my soapbox. Like I think Suncliff will be a household name in the next few years. And we pulled it from the THC line. Like we still make cannabis-based products under that brand, but for the most part, it's a CBD brand going forward. And we partnered with realcbdforme.com, and we launched the first about 10, 12 products. And I think we shipped to 10 or 12 states in the first week. It's awesome. Really been rolling. We did a pilot program with the Ballard Farmers Market. So we've been there every week tomorrow will be the 3rd week in a row. I think we'll be a staple at that event. And we've just been kicking the crap out of our competition. So it's exciting times. Like I think that's probably one of the things that has a lot the most attention from me in the next 2 to 3 years is really launching that brand so that it can kind of pave the way for the rest of our family of brands and services. So that's PSA for you. But no, I'm very, very excited about Suncliff. I think that's going to be, it'll be a major cornerstone of all of my brands and companies over the next few years.
I love it. So that's part of your big picture.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the big picture. I mean, the goal was to gather as much intellectual property and have as many brands and recipes, formulas, and know-how, as well as talented people in a pool that could either be attractive to a smaller pubco that would like to partner or a large major corporation that we would be a target. So I've always said, let's put a target on our back for a major corporation to come in. And we've done that. I think we've taken little incremental steps to put ourselves in that position. And now it's about taking all of these good ideas and this proof of concept and rolling it out on a national level and forging partnerships. So, I mean, we've got distribution partners in California lined up that will produce 200,000-300,000 bottles a day of these products when the time is there. So we've got this kind of systematically phased out. So when you ask about big picture, like for me, obviously I wanted to have this almost playland of brands and services in an industry that to me doesn't feel like work.
Right.
It's still And there's anyone that's out there listening now, there are lots of industries that if you work hard, the book Break from the Pack, he talks about, if you spend 10 minutes a day on any subject within a year, you will be an industry expert. Because even the experts they lean on the knowledge they already have. They start talking out of their own ass and believing their own hype. If you stay on it, you can be an industry expert. And that's what I did 10 years ago in this space. And I just literally every day, I read what the competition's doing. I check in on other brands. I go to stores. I look at different recipes. I think we're always trying to build something bigger and better. And I think my big picture just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
I would agree with that. What about personally?
Oh, I don't have a personal life, actually.
Oh, right.
No, when I think back,
like 5 years ago, your big picture has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I was definitely not ever getting married again. I don't even know if I was completely divorced at that point, but I was definitely never getting married again. That's for sure. I didn't think I would have another kid.
Yeah.
We obviously planned to have Caden, and like it was, we talked about it before we got married, and it was always something that we were both open to, but it wasn't like a hard line. It has to be for you. And it wasn't a hard line no for me, but I just kind of assumed, at my prime age that I was, just figured and then every year it went by, you think, oh, well, being pregnant for another 9 months from now or whenever we actually get pregnant. So that's part of the reason we decided to do it was...
We thought it would take a lot longer.
Yeah. Way longer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I didn't plan, obviously a lot's changed. I think that's
a good example of your big picture changing of okay, now that we have 2 kids, what does that look like in the future? And like, how do we plan for that? And it makes it more exciting, but still thinking of, again, I always go, it was revolutionary for me to work backwards from my goals, because you would always say to me in the past, like, just do something every day. I'm like, I don't have a show today.
Remember, I used to say to you, like, how many managers did you reach out to? How many venues did you, like, I would say you have a whole world at your fingertips. Where's your pre-staged email that you copy paste to 10 different marketing groups?
And I would get so stuck on the little steps because my goal was too general. My goal was too small and too general. When you make it almost like, I'm not even going to say the cheesy line, but when you make your goals even bigger than you possibly thought, that I feel like you are able to move so much closer, and those daily things come so much easier to me. So like for me, writing down those big goals every day is a game changer in my mindset. And like I have with the baby, I haven't been on my the baby. I haven't been on my morning game as much, where I do gratitude, goal set, and I write down the biggest goals every day and then do a small to-do list.
It's funny when you do it. Those are the days when I go, oh, she was on her stories like 19 different times, posted a blog today, and I'll come down to the computer and there's like some new music that you've been working on. And it really does make a huge difference. I could literally just go through my day and see what activities you've done, and guarantee I'd bet $100 I could walk up, open your journal, and there would be an entry for the day.
Because it totally shifts into, what am I working towards? When I don't do that, it's kind of like, I'm really tired and this and this. And it's just, honestly, the last year or two, thinking big picture has been a huge game changer for me. And so that's why I want to encourage people, like, don't focus on the next week, the next month. Like, what do you want? Even writing down like daily, what you want your life to look like in 10 years from now. And what do you need to do to start working towards that, and being patient in pursuing that, which I am terrible at. But that would be
terrible. But
that would be my humble advice, and that just because it's totally changed my life.
Well, and I think if you read a lot of books or hear a lot of people talking about being in a position of authority, and I think you do a good job of, like, you'll read a book and reach out to the author and make a contact and like set up a relationship with that person. And sometimes I think that you learn that they really are an authority, and sometimes you find out they're just in a very similar position to you, and they're trying their best to grow their brand and do things. And I think,
or they know more in an area that I don't, and so it doesn't mean that I wouldn't be more knowledgeable in an area that, that they're not experts in. But building that relationship, you're able to say, oh my gosh, you're so great at this. Like, teach me about it, and then realizing, oh, but you still have goals and you still want to grow in this area as well.
Yeah. But I think even from your perspective, like it's about like seeing the results from doing it every day. That's like the best teacher that you can get from anyone is your own proof oh, wow. On the 5 days that I did a journal entry in the morning were probably the most 5 productive days of the month.
Yep.
And deciding whether that's the perfect recipe or if you should be doing it every single day and just having your ass lit on fire.
Well, and the other moms are telling me this too, of like recognizing the days where I can't get it done or the baby's having a hard day, like realizing that is okay and that there's patience and value in that too.
So I want to talk about something related to that. And it's kind of a big picture setback or what does it feel like? I think, and I have plenty of it, so I have my own opinions, but the negative stuff.
Yeah.
Like having someone show up to your show last night that you had never met and only knew you through Instagram was awesome.
It was awesome. It was very strange.
But what about the guy that doesn't know you at all, that accidentally saw a post of yours where you mentioned breastfeeding?
Yep.
And he basically said like, this bitch's music is garbage and terrible because the last thing anyone wanting to hear about her music would want to hear about her breastfeeding or doing
especially in an age where like my brand has grown because I've shared my personal life and my connections with
everyone's is right. It's document.
Yes. And it was interesting that he had so many opinions and had not heard my music, but because I was talking about things like breastfeeding and posting pictures of Kaden, that I somehow was less of a musician.
No, you posted a picture getting your hair done.
Yeah.
And you made a joke. And all the women saw that you had a pump there and that the joke was that, basically like, this is my new career, right?
Right.
Got to get my hair done. I got to stay on my stuff, but I also have to do this. And he didn't even recognize that. He was so offended that you would be talking about your career and breastfeeding at the same time. And he was angry.
Yeah. It got to me a little bit. But then I had people jump in and I shouldn't respond to people like this, but I did and just, tried to diffuse it. But what pissed me off the most was he kept coming at me very combative and very
it pissed me off
offensive. And then usually I beg you to stay out of these situations, but you actually did a pretty good job of jumping in very kindly. And then he was like,
oh, I was a jerk to him though. Cause his thing was like someone's name and it was like dad's. It was like, Jessica's dad or something like that. And I was like, who I feel bad for in all of this is Jessica. I'm using not real names here, but come on, man. Like you're out here just like trashing on people randomly.
Right.
And he came back like totally stepped back and was fairly
and even
cordial.
Was like, well, I guess your kid is kind of cute.
Well, that was after some more back and forth where I was still being kind of pressing on him.
But it was because you were a dude.
And he was like, I'll admit one thing in all of this. The kid's awful dang cute or something like that. And he disappeared into the night, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a total jerk to you. And I think that made it even worse, right? It just shows like what a kind of a praying coward he is because
And recognizing that's we were talking about this last night too, like with the person that came that I hadn't met before, but knew my entire personal life because I've been putting it on my Instagram stories. But how cool that can be and also how exposing that can be. And you were saying you can't pick and choose. So like big picture for me is learning these lessons of it is going to be hard. There are going to be like some jerks and some creepers, but ultimately the positive has far outweighed the negative in my opinion. Not just in building connections, but in like the little Instagram mom tribe that is like, oh, my kid was like this. Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And people that say, thank you for being so honest.
Or like how many guys? I have quite a few employees who like know our whole thing from watching your stories. And like they have like a different appreciation for parenting and kids. And it's just,
that's cool.
Yeah. It's really, really cool to see. There are a lot of people that think that it's too much,
right.
And I think even our parents to some degree are like, okay, really? You think people want to watch this? Like, I don't watch it.
Yeah.
Why are people so afraid to just flick their finger one extra time? And like I told the guys that there was going to be an ad in your feed no matter what.
Right.
Something was going to be in that block. It just so happened to be something you didn't like. So just flick up. The algorithm was wrong, right? They tried to show you something you thought you'd be interested in because there was a tie to music and it happened to have a breast pump. Keep going. Don't go rip. But I think at the end of the day, if you look at it the right way, it's helpful. I mean, I mean, we're in the early stages of my company. I think there's a bunch of people whose primary goal is to make quick money on the stock, or they're betting against it and want to cause a reaction, whatever the reason is that they hop on these message boards and say negative things. But like, I can sometimes go 3 or 4 weeks without looking at the stock price because that's not my job.
And that's not your, again, going back to big picture, if you know what the ultimate goal is, the criticisms and anything like that gets in the way will not affect you and will not derail you from what you're trying to do.
And what's a penny stock moving? I mean, I understand there's a market. I have to respect that, but a penny stock jumping from 1 penny to 2 or 2 to 3, that's not I'm talking about trying to build a multi-billion-dollar company. And I'm going to do that by building a great company, not appeasing people in the message boards. But man, those guys, I mean, they'll turn on you quick. Like, they can be your biggest supporters. And then just, I had one that was like his arrogant face when he's looking in I'm like, whoa. And somebody else was like, I can tell he's nervous. I get people like other shareholders who have pretty healthy communication will pull a piece out and say, hey, this guy, sorry, man, they're being pretty rude.
Well, it's the same thing with the, people that see my videos like, she's kind of fat or she's not.
Yeah. Or like
she
it's kind of pitchy
rough
on that one. It's like, wow, really?
And that's just, for what we're trying to do, that's just the reality of the situation.
Think about the difference between what we just said. I was irritated because a guy said my face looked a little arrogant. I was making a funny face and like people are saying you are fat. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the difference between, again, I'm probably like,
or I got the most upset because I was doing something that allows me to feed our child.
Yeah. That they also did when they were born and the only reason they're alive today. So little things like that. But, I definitely, my thing is more like the analyzing the speed of my voice. Like, I rewatched it a few times. He looks hurried and nervous. Like, I'm walking down the sidewalk at a farmer's market after an interview, and there's 1,000 people around me, and my parking was expiring in 1 minute.
Yep.
Wow.
And that was the first week you guys were there. Like, you're trying to figure it out, trying to make sure you have all the employees you need. It's like, what? Yeah.
Oh, someone was like, I looked up this podcast he claims he was on. Like, what did they do it right in front of the booth with all those people around? That's exactly what we did. The guy was like, it was a really great interview. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
And I told him, he was like, wow, he's like, you're natural. I'm like, well, we have our own podcasts and I've been talking for my entire life.
Right.
So I'm comfortable with it. But yeah, it was amazing. But again, my negative comments are, mostly about people wanting me to change something and do something faster to their schedule. Yours are more like actually personal and seems like that's why I asked you the question. Like, I can brush off a guy that's trying to make a lot of money. I can respect that.
Right.
Or manipulate something. Fine. But I think for us, like, I'll wrap this up, not make it about work, but one of our other shareholders sent me a really funny message after these guys were in the boards, like really talking about me personally. And he said, talking trash about you or the company at this early stage of the game, knowing it's such a long play for everybody, is like an owner going down to a preseason game and booing his own team for their performance when, you're not rolling out the full playbook. You're not playing all the starters. You're just setting the building blocks for a long season. And I got a kick out of it. I remind myself every time I see something negative, I just picture like John Snyder or Paul Allen down at just booing him at practice.
Well, and I always go back to in the 7 Decisions, he talks about criticism and by Andy Andrews. It's one of my favorite books.
Best book.
And he says, if you're not getting criticism from any side, from anybody, you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
And I always think of that, like every time I get criticism or you get criticism, it's like, okay, it means that we're moving. Yeah. It means that we're moving towards our goals and we're actually doing something that people are responding to. Because the people that are going to be on board are going to be on board, and the people that are going to be against it are going to be against it. But if they take the time to tell you how against it they are, they're still engaging and you're still making a little bit of a wave.
And who cares, right? Half of this is like literally someday I want Carter and Caden to be able to go back and listen to these conversations of us in the studio and just know a bit about who we are, what we stood for. I mean, like, that's the best part of all of this.
Yeah.
Same with the vlogs, the whole 9. And sometimes there are hundreds of people that listen to this, start to finish. And I respect the fact that's hundreds and hundreds of hours of runtime that we have in other people's lives. That's amazing.
Right.
But that's not why we do it.
Yeah.
And it's not big enough to get, super arrogant about anyway. It works for us. It's fun. It's engaging, and it helps us fulfill part of our goal, and part of our strategy in the big picture is to have, a widespread audience amongst a bunch of different platforms.
Right.
And our brands, both of our brands, depend on a pretty big market share.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody who wants to do a boutique in Seattle or Portland, very specific to the kind of the Portland vibe, it wouldn't be as necessary for them to have a wide reaching platform.
Right.
For us, this is a great step. And again, anyone that's looking to start or do anything with their own brand or their own idea, you can start it for like $50. You can start it for nothing.
Yeah.
You've got it in your pocket.
So let's wrap this up with, what are some applicable tips you can give to think more big picture?
I think just getting out of your own way. Like
Yeah.
there's nobody or nothing in your way if you really, really want it. And I feel like that's part of the revolution we're in with technology. And I just think that
All these platforms are free.
they're free, and they're not always going to be, right?
Right.
The access, it used to be. So remember on Facebook, if you had a big Facebook following, you could get a message of a show, particularly yourself, to 3,000 or 4,000 people
Right.
with a click of a button, and everybody saw it. And now it's, $60 to get 200 of your own friends and family and audience to even see the post.
Yeah.
And so that migration is happening over and over, right? These new platforms offer, like right now, if you want to make content, then Instagram stories, you're going to get a lot better punch into other people's feeds than you would posting a picture.
Yep.
But if you do IGTV, which less people are doing, and they really are driving people to do it, you're going to get further distribution and wider distribution because of that. They're trying to lead the horse to water.
Right.
And so sometimes just looking up and going, hey, let's find a smaller platform that's like TikTok that's on a really fast trajectory, jump there so that I am one of the core that help kind of build the platform. And YouTube's probably the only platform right now that it really does a balanced job of trying to just keep the user or the person watching engaged by feeding them another piece of content similar to what they just watched or similar to other things they've watched, and not just being about whether or not that person paid to put it in front of you.
Right.
It's about finding like what matches you, which is why I love YouTube, right? You'll pop up the next video. I'm like,
Oh yeah, it's great.
this is exactly what I want to see right now.
So is it finding the platform that they're most comfortable with to get started on, or is it just even identifying what they would like to do?
I think, it's identifying what you'd like to do, right? If you don't have something to talk about it, but I think every single person does. Like, if just think about what's the one thing right now, close your eyes, like what makes you happy? There's someone out there that just envisioned themselves running on a treadmill or running through a trail. Fine. Is it running shoes? Is it running clothes? Is it, there's 50 things that are tied to that hobby or thing you like the most that you could make money on.
Yeah.
Or build into a career, or just be a really great hobby,
Yeah.
So I feel like picking something that really you're passionate about.
I keep picturing Bob Ross, because you could tell that like he loved what he was doing every day, and he was wildly successful because he just did what he loved, being who he was.
That was one of the original vlogs. I mean, all he's doing is talking to the camera,
Amazing.
painting, being a bit of like perfectly himself.
Right.
And for those that thought he was dorky, they engaged with it. For those that thought it was really great painting, they engaged with it. Those that thought it was crappy painting, they engaged with it. So I think just like, everyone's been saying for a long time, is just document as much as you can and don't worry about creating as much.
Yeah, tell your story.
Yeah, tell the story. There will be something that, and even when you fail, that was one of the things that we tried to do a lot during the pregnancy, like in our stories, it was really hard. Yeah. Like the childbirth was a battle for the George household. Yeah. Obviously you carried the brunt of that, but it was we'll tell that story another time, but it was brutal. Yeah. And, not just posting all the like happy belly bump and the
I had so many women say like, thank you for being real about it, about the hardships. And I'm obviously so grateful. Everything, I'm healthy, the baby's healthy. And that's like so amazing. But all of the reality of what went down and sharing that and being like, this is hard. This part sucks. Like,
and I'm sure there are some women that did feel like their most beautiful self when they were like fully pregnant, but
I mean, there are women that say that. I don't know. I don't know if that's the reality. And if they do, then,
well, it wasn't
God bless
your reality.
them.
That's all I'm saying. And I think a lot of people did resonate with the fact that you were pretty honest about that.
I'm so glad I'm not pregnant anymore.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Anyways, and
So-
are you done with your?
I know I'm done with mine. I was
applicable?
gonna kind of throw it back at you in closing. Like, what do you think is the most important thing to do on a daily basis?
Yeah.
And
I'm going to speak primarily to women because this
Okay.
is what has been frustrating me about women who have.
tune out, gentlemen. She's not talking to you.
Hey, there are some insecure men as well.
I think most men are
Yeah,
as
that's
insecure as
true.
ever. So talk to everybody.
Okay, I'm going to talk to everybody. Goal set, right? In 10 years from now, write down a description of what your day-to-day life in your wildest dreams looks like. Then try to identify what you need to do now to get there. And also, if there are any fears involved, write down that fear and put some reality into it. Like, say if your biggest fear is failure, say you tried to start this business and you failed. Like, what does that look like? Do the people in your life love you less? Or will you have a regret, moving forward? And like identifying that fear and recognizing that even if your worst fear happens, it's not worth not doing it.
I think you'll probably learn from it and be way better off than when you started.
Yep.
And there will be no harm, no foul. I cannot think.
Oprah says failure doesn't exist, and I believe her.
Well, Oprah says a lot of things.
Yes, she does. Anyway, I just think that has been monumental to change my daily focus is thinking big picture, thinking long term. And so, and I revisit it, every couple months, every year as our lives change. Okay, now what does my 10-year mark look like? And what can I do now to get there?
Awesome. You do a very good job with that.
I do my best,
Anyway, well, I think we'll kind of stay on this series. We'll bring in a couple of new guests. We've got a
Say
bunch
that
of
every
people.
time.
Well, I know, but we have been
do
lining
have.
up a ton of people. I think that's our biggest issue is just finding time and schedules to do this. But
Well, now that the baby at least sleeps.
what's your excuse? Let's hear it. Big picture excuse.
My excuse is I birthed a child that I have to take care of all the time, but he's now sleeping for a solid 3 to 4 hours at night. And
Gotcha.
so,
I could turn your
Where
mic
will
down
it
a little
get
bit if you want to get worked up again. I just don't want to clip. That's all.
That's all.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. It's been an interesting couple of months, and it'll be exciting to get kind of back into a rhythm
Yeah.
with all of this stuff.
Feels
And
good.
hopefully
Feels
get some vlogs going. Hey, go to realcbdforme.com and buy some Suncliff product.
Yeah.
There's other products there too, and I know they're rolling out another 6 or 8 products that'll be on the website in the coming months. But try Suncliff 15; it'll get you 15% off everything there, and it ships for $1.
And go to my blog on susangmusic.com. I did a whole write-up on it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. No,
I was like, don't steer traffic away from.
No, I did a write-up
moneymaker.
on Suncliff and how using those products has helped me personally, and basically just did a breakdown of what CBD is and what products you have.
The reviews have been crazy. That's one of the things I'm most excited about is actually to have some folks even come in and give some testimonials to the product. Like it's been really, really well received.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, dream big picture, do all the things, shoot for the moon.
Yeah. If you're having a hard time, envisioning all of that, have a little puff of one of my products and rub some CBD cream on your aching back and get back in the gym, whatever it is you're into.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you on the next one.
Okay.
All right. Bye.